Have you ever just stopped and wondered if your choices actually matter in a universe governed by strict, unbreakable physical laws? Or, why time only ever seems to move in one direction? Well, you are in exactly the right place. In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into how the fundamental equations of physics actually shape reality, time, and human agency, breaking down some seriously profound insights from theoretical physicist Sean Carroll. Okay, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to hit 4 main stops. First up, the real physics multiverse. Second, the arrow of time. Third, riding the entropy wave. And finally, emergence and free will. Right, diving into part 1, the real physics multiverse. Let's kick things off by looking at our total cultural obsession with alternate realities, because it's a concept that has completely taken over modern storytelling. In Hollywood, the multiverse is basically just a coping mechanism, right? We love to imagine that if we had just turned left instead of right, we could magically meet a cooler, wealthier version of ourselves. But actually, physicists were dragged kicking and screaming to the multiverse concept, simply because they had to explain observed data. In real physics, human choices have absolutely nothing to do with it. The actual multiverse is generated by microscopic events that are completely 100% isolated from our everyday timeline. So, listen. Your human choices, they aren't actually splitting reality. Instead, it's the literal measurement of subatomic particles that creates these entirely separate timelines. According to the many worlds theory, which was introduced by Hugh Everett back in the 1950s, if an electron can be spinning either clockwise or counterclockwise, the universe literally splits so that both outcomes happen. The math, the equations, dictate this split, not your decision about what you're going to eat for breakfast. To put this whole thing into perspective, think about the number of 5,000. That is the literal number of radioactive decays happening inside an average human body every single second. And because every single one of those decays is a tiny quantum event interacting with the world, your physical body is causing the universe to branch 2 to the power of 5,000 times. Every single second. It's just a staggeringly large number. But again, these branches are governed strictly by physics, completely independent of your mind or your psychology. Okay, moving right along to part 2, the arrow of time. Stepping away from the multiverse for a second, we have to look at the massive cosmic timeline to really grasp our everyday experience. Like, why on earth do we remember the past but never the future? If you look at our absolute best theories of fundamental physics, from Newton all the way to Einstein, you're going to notice something super bizarre. The fundamental universe doesn't actually have an intrinsic direction of time embedded in its core mechanics. Think about it. If you take a video of a pendulum swinging and play it in reverse, it looks exactly the same. So if the microscopic equations run perfectly in both directions, our human perception of flowing time has to be coming from somewhere else. So why does time feel like a one-way straight to us? Well, it all comes down to entropy, the universe's measure of disorder. You can easily scramble a pristine, low-entropy egg into a messy, high-entropy scramble, but you can never, ever unscramble it. By tracing this logic backward, we realize time feels directional simply because the universe is continuously moving from low to high entropy. And the only reason that egg was highly organized yesterday is because the universe was even more organized the day before that. It's a chain reaction going all the way back 14 billion years to the incredibly delicate, ultra-low entropy state of the Big Bang, which physicists call the past hypothesis. Which brings us perfectly to part 3, riding the entropy wave. We so often think of entropy as our enemy, right? Like it's this unstoppable force of decay that just ruins everything. But let's look at how human life actually fits into this supposedly winding down universe. Now, rather than seeing this as some depressing cosmic countdown, the timeline of the universe actually shows us that complex structures, like you and me, can only emerge in the transition period between 2 extreme states. The Big Bang was incredibly low entropy, but completely simple, just a dense point. And the distant future, the ultimate heat death of the universe, will be maximum entropy, but perfectly empty. We are so incredibly lucky to exist right here in this beautiful, dynamic middle era where things are shifting from low to high entropy, providing the exact perfect conditions needed for complexity. Think of it kind of like swirling eddies of perfume escaping a tiny bottle. When the perfume is trapped in the bottle, it's simple. When it eventually fills the entire room completely, it's simple again. But that journey, the journey from the bottle to the edges of the room, that is what creates those beautiful, complex, swirling patterns. We are essentially those intricate, swirling fractals in the grand cosmic room.
So here is the absolute ultimate takeaway. If entropy weren't actively increasing, exquisitely organized biological life, like us, could never exist. It's so common to hear that life is a struggle against entropy. But honestly, that is completely backwards. We take in low entropy energy from the sun, we use it to power our brains and our actions, and then we radiate high entropy heat back out into space. Without the universe winding down, we literally couldn't form a single thought or memory. We are entirely, fundamentally dependent on it.
All right, let's bring it all home with part 4, emergence and free will. Let's zoom back into the human scale to tackle arguably the most profound question of them all: human agency. If we are just made up of atoms obeying strict, cold physical laws, how can we possibly have free will? The whole concept of emergence is basically the linchpin here. Emergence means there are multiple, equally true ways to describe the exact same reality. For example, a chair is just a collection of microscopic atoms, sure, but it is also very much a piece of wood that you can sit on. Both realities are totally valid. Similarly, yes, you are a collection of particles obeying physics, but at the emergent, macroscopic level, the level where we actually live, you are absolutely a human being with real desires, complex emotions, and the genuine ability to make choices.
But, this naturally brings up a pretty terrifying thought experiment from the 1800s, Laplace's demon. Pierre-Simon Laplace realized that if the laws of physics are strictly deterministic, a vast, godlike intellect that knew the location and velocity of every single atom could perfectly predict the entire future. This single idea has caused literally centuries of existential dread, making people feel like helpless cogs in a massive, predetermined clockwork universe, where our decisions are nothing but an illusion.
But hey, here is your reality check. You are absolutely not Laplace's demon, and neither is anyone else, for that matter. Because we as humans have vastly incomplete information about the microscopic atoms in the universe, the only accurate and genuinely useful way to describe ourselves isn't as mindless atoms, but as active agents making real, impactful choices. Even if the microscopic universe is rigidly following mathematical equations, at the level of reality where we actually live and operate, the future is fundamentally unwritten. And this whole idea brings us to what's called compatibilist free will. It's awesome because it allows us to fully embrace a scientific universe while still maintaining our core humanity. It doesn't claim we have some magical physics-defying power to override nature. Instead, it states that choice and responsibility are very, very real, emergent properties of human interaction. The simple fact that you don't know exactly what's going to happen next means you still have to weigh your options, make hard decisions, and bear the consequences. Your reasoning genuinely impacts your timeline, and honestly, that gives life incredible meaning. So as you think about your place in this vast, deeply interconnected cosmos, I really want to leave you with this one final thought. You are a highly complex, exquisitely structured organism that only gets to exist for a brief, incredibly beautiful moment in the middle era of the universe. You are bound by the strict laws of physics, yet you are entirely responsible for the choices you make with the time you have. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really challenge you to look at your everyday choices not as mere illusions, but as the beautiful, emergent reality of a universe in motion. So, what will you do with your time on the board?